I offer my humble and loving pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagawan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Om Shri Sai Ram. Welcome to another session of enlightening session of Sai Karuna Talks. This week we are blessed to be joined by Sister Illig-Mooncie. Sister Illig-Mooncie is German by birth and has raised as a Catholic. At the tender age of 22, she came to UK to work as a film editor with German television in London, making films about British life, aspects of British life, and including royal family. Brothers and sisters, her search for peace led her to Guru in India. Yes, Sai Baba. Her life changed. Totally journey, spiritual transformation began when she visited Sai Baba. Louise went on making a number of films about Swami. The Miracle of Putpati, which is a documentary about Super Speciality Hospital, and 1995 Sai Baba and His Children, available on YouTube, Sai Baba, God on the Earth. She's also written a wonderful book, a fascinating book, I should say, titled Encounter Between Two Worlds, a journey from myself to myself. Brothers and sisters, please join me in welcoming Auntie Louise. Jai Sai Ram.
Jai Sai Ram, everyone. And thank you for giving me this space to be with you in these difficult times. And picture behind me of Swami says at the bottom, why fear when I am here? And I want to talk about this about miracles and the things I've experienced with Swami, but also about what Swami means to me on a practical level right now in these tricky times. And whenever I wasn't in India. And so Dr. Upadhyay said in one of his talks, we're just instruments, and God is using us in miraculous ways, and He's using our talents, even the ones we never knew we had. So I never knew I was brave enough to go to India and make a film about Swami when I first went on my search to see him. And I don't know why God is doing what, but he has his plans. And I was always intrigued by Swami saying that he can perform all sorts of miracles, but the greatest miracle is the transformation of a human heart. And this is what I want to talk about, is my transformation of my human heart. And it means this transformation makes us the miracle, makes me the miracle. And so after I made the documentary, The Miracle of Putapati, a colleague of mine called me from Germany, from our head office, and said, well, Louise, we've just been to India. This was the big company, German television. They've just been to India, and they wanted to film Sai Baba to make a documentary. And my alarm bells went on because I've not known television at that time to be loving to gurus or say anything nice about anybody who would go to India to seek the blessing of a guru. So she said to me, we went all the way to India with a camera team and didn't get permission to film. How come you got permission? How come you made your documentary? Well, the answer is I haven't got the foggiest. Only Swami knows why I was allowed, why he steered me in that direction. That was my very first film I made independently of my work. So he took me by the hand, and I want to share with you this miracle. Now, I want to say there is no need to be jealous, because God always sees the bigger picture, which we don't see. And I want to give you an example. I was once in India, and I shared the room with an Iranian lady. She had huge trouble of getting to Puttaparthi, leaving her country and coming to the ashram to see Swami. And I became so green with envy, because she had 3 interviews in 1 week. And I thought to myself, well, Louise, this is not good enough. This is not very nice. I need, here, this human heart needs transformation. Jealousy is the last thing I want to experience. But obviously, you know, we are human. And I thought, what, 3 interviews in 1 week? And, you know, I had 2 interviews, and we always compare, which is the strangest human thing, but it's natural. And, but I was green with envy. And I thought to myself, well, what does Swami want from me? What can I give Swami at this stage? And that is inner view. So that jealousy and envy I experienced had to be uprooted. I had to get it out of my system once and for all, because it is not a pleasant experience. So the teaching of Swami just follows me in everyday life, in everything I do. I try to be aware of the of all the faults and unpleasantries I sometimes feel or think inside of me. So Swami's teaching is helping me on a daily basis to look at everything and like on an onion, peeling off layer by layer until I guess I find just light inside of me, if that is possible, light and love and peace. Just to give you another story, which was a huge learning as well for me. In an interview, we were quite a large group of people, and a group from Holland was sitting behind me. I was that was in Puttaparthi. Swami's chair was to my right, and I was sitting next to him, and the group was right behind me. And there was Sandra and Emi Levi were in the interview room. And suddenly Swami got up and he said, I'm giving saris. So he went to his cupboard and got out a handful of saris, 3 or 4 of them. And he was just about to hand one to me and I stretched out my hand like I do now, and like a chameleon, one of the ladies behind me took it. So I froze like a deer in a flashlight. I thought, oh, what is my learning right now? How do I cope with this one? Do I feel rejected? What do I? And I closed my eyes in the interview room and looked inside, and I thought, what on earth is my learning here? I was just about to get one of Swami's robes. Did I say sorry? I meant one of Swami's robes. And it was snatched away. So what is my learning? And I came to the conclusion that it was detachment, because so much in life is given and taken away. So if we always react and feel a loss and in a crisis, then that's going to be a very painful journey. So I thought this would have been probably the most precious thing I could have received from Swami, a rope to hold on to, but I didn't get it. So detachment was my answer. And I opened my eyes and looked at Swami, and he smiled at me. And then he said, she's a good woman. Now, that was my reward. In a way, that was bigger than getting the sari, I keep saying sorry, getting the rope in the end. Although, to be honest, I would have loved to have it too, to be really honest. But the treasure was that he said, she's a good woman. And people try to say, oh, you're not confident enough, you're not this enough, you're not that enough. But I think the truth is what the conclusion I came to, that it was a lesson of detachment. And on a practical level, how Swami is coping, Swami is helping me in life situations while I was in London. I had quite a stressful job at German television, and the computer screens, we had long working hours, often, sometimes 12, 14, 16 working hours. My eyes were burning, and I could hardly see out of them without them streaming. And I had an invitation to a bhajan singing in North London, where lots of vibhuti comes out of Swami's pictures. And I was sitting in the front row with all these wonderful pictures of Swami and Shirdi Baba in front of me, and all the statues, vibhuti everywhere. And we started to sing the bhajan. And suddenly I had vibhuti flung into my face, into my eyes, and it flew. I was covered in it. And yet there was no one in front of me. I was in the first row in front of the pictures. So I thought, okay, Swami, do you want me to rub vibhuti onto my eyelids? Which I then did for a long, long time. In the night, I rubbed vibhuti on my eyelids, and they really helped and soothed my eyes. And another event where I was very ill in 2004, and I had to have an operation. And I was very scared, very, very scared. And I rubbed myself from top to toe with vibhuti. And on the day of the operation, and I didn't care what the doctors, nurses, what anybody would say. And I had in one hand, I had this little picture of Swami I held on tight during the operation. And on the other hand, I had a box of a little plastic bag Swami gave me with vibhuti. And then I went under into the, I was anesthetized. And when I woke up, I was in a state of bliss. I woke up singing out loud, glory to God. And the nurse was standing on my bed, and she said, are you all right? She looked really concerned, really worried. And I said to her, oh, I'm in a state of bliss. And she looked completely puzzled. I guess she never had a patient coming out of a serious operation feeling happy. But happy I felt, and it was just for me, holding on to Swami was my savior. So this is what I'm trying to say, especially at this difficult time, holding on to Swami, no matter what. Now, I also want to tell you how I came to Swami. Because of my work, I started having heart palpitations and all sorts of problems. Couldn't sleep at night. I saw pictures in front of me from sitting in front of a television screen. And my doctor said, well, gave me a huge prescription of Valium or beta blockers or whatever. And I said, no, 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 I've got to change my life. And found healers in Croydon and made my appointment. And there he was. In the healing room was a photograph of Swami. And his eyes is just, I looked at his eyes and they just drew me in. And even when I closed my own eyes, I could still feel him. I could see his face. So I've been dreaming about going to India, wanting to go to India ever since I was a little girl. I always knew one day I would be getting there. And I knew when I saw this picture that this would be the reason for going to India. And they had a library of books, and of course I took all sorts of books at home, Dr. Sandweiss and Hislop and Peggy Mason, everybody who was anybody in the Sai family. I read it, I absorbed it, but one thing, I mean, I'm brought up a Catholic in a very conservative German household, and I can't say up to that point I've ever experienced a miracle or contemplated a miracle. The last thing I knew was 2,000 years ago when Jesus walked the earth and manifested the loaves of breads and fishes and wine at a wedding, and I read all these about all these miracles and the love pouring out of everyone towards this guru. And I thought, oh my God, why does everybody turn into a pink marshmallow when they finally find this guru? And that didn't stop me though from keeping on reading. And I found Amy and Sandra Levy in North London who just happened to start a group to go to India. That's what they did at the time. And we were about 50 people. And obviously we had a meeting prior to going to India. And I went to Harrow, to their home. And immediately I knew my karmic burden was looking at me, because Sandra and Emmy are Jewish, and I've carried all my life this incredible burden about being German. And this is a story I want to also share with you. It's the miracle of transformations. The gift Swami gave me is to free myself of that immense burden of a karmic pressure. And so I thought, oh my God, here we go again. How will they receive me? But there was no question of she's German or anything. All I experienced was love. The love of God, the love of friendship. And so we planned this fantastic trip to India, and coming to Bangalore, I mean, it was all new for me, all absolutely new land. And the things I've experienced, I never even dreamt about. So in Bangalore, the first night we were there, I had this dream of Swami, and in the dream, I had this like a little cartoon, a Disney cartoon. I had this little door here where my heart is, and Swami entered through that little door in my heart and then expanded. And I thought, oh my God, you never get out of there. And I drew this picture. maybe you can see it afterwards. It was such a powerful experience, and I woke up feeling so happy and knowing I was doing the right thing, because I had quite a few challenges to overcome to get to India in the first place. I forgot to let you know that we went just before the Gulf War started, and that was a very important time at my workplace. They were preparing for war, war news about the Gulf War, and my boss said to me, "You can't go. There's no way you can go. We need you here." And so I was in tears. I said, "Well, give me one day to think about it." And I had a long meditation, and I had every divinatory gadget I could consult, because in those days, before going to Swami, I couldn't ask Swami for help. Well, I could have, but didn't think of it. So I asked the rune stones and God knows what, the pendulum, and the answer was evidently that you've got to go. So I went back to work next day, and I said, "Look, I have to go to India. I have no choice. This is life and death. This is the most meaningful thing I could ever do." And my boss said, "Well, this may have consequences. You may not have a job when you come back." So I thought, well, I have to take that risk. So with that in mind, I went the next day and to India, and now we're back in Bangalore. So off we go to see Swami, and obviously in Puttaparthi, this very stressful situation starts. Is interview. We all have to have an interview. Our group has to have an interview, where we were split in two groups because 50 people were too large a number to squeeze in one interview room. So we had 25 people in each group, and we got a scarf and a ring, and went to darshan every day, prayed, did seva in the canteen. And I want to be very honest about this, about seva. I didn't do it from the heart. I did it because I wanted something. I cut onions and peeled potatoes and chopped tomatoes and whatever was necessary, washed plates. But my heart wasn't in it. All I could think of was interview. And few days went by and we didn't get one, which sort of was a bit of a crisis. But the worst thing was to come, because Swami just disappeared. He left. And in 1991, I don't know why, but nobody told us where he went. And that was actually very painful. I felt like an abandoned child. And I thought, my God, I've come thousands of miles and he disappears. And we were told to do more seva, do more introspection, do more prayer, do more of everything to attract him to come back. So I did frantically chop more of everything, more onions, more potatoes, but he didn't come back. So after 3 days, a handful of people, 4 ladies and a young man, we got very restless and unruly, and we said, we want to hire a bus and look for Swami. So we got this little rusty bus, I always say it was just held together by a wing and a prayer. And we took off. We said, well, let's start with Bangalore. That's the nearest place. So we went to Bangalore, and lo and behold, there he was. You can imagine our happiness. And we had to find a room. The ashram was packed. It was evident that Swami was there because there was lots of people milling, no place in the ashram. So we found this tiny room. I think this lovely Indian family in the village along the high street, they must have given up their beds for us. So I shared a room with two friends, Laura and Rose and myself, and I slept on this. It was the narrowest couch I've ever seen, a red PVC couch, and I slept like a tin soldier all night. I kept waking up. I could hear chanting all night, chanting, and I kept thinking I must get up and look where it is and even join in and do chanting myself. But I was too tired, too weak to do that. So I fell asleep chanting. It was absolutely beautiful. So next morning, I saw our lovely landlady, and I asked her, I said, Madam, where was all this? Where were all the monks? I presumed there were monks. Where were all the monks chanting? And she looked at me as if I'd gone completely mad. And she said, Madam, no chanting. And she pulled me out of her little house and showed me a factory. Behind her house was a giant, I don't actually know what it is. All you who know Vrindavan better than I do, there's this big, is it a steel manufacturer? I have no idea. But it was a sledgehammer going down all night and all day. And had I known it was a mechanical sound, I would have not slept a wink. So I somehow knew in my heart that it was a welcome gift from the guru I was searching for. It felt like this wonderful welcome gift because this chanting was so out of this world that a sledgehammer sound was turned into this was just a miracle for me. So now we'd found Swami. We got the young man said he's going back to put a party to get the rest of our group. So he left in a taxi and came back the next day. And here we were again, all together, very happy to be together. And we were on our mission again. Obviously, we wanted interview. But this time, things were different. We sat in the near the big tree in the courtyard in Vrindavan, and in the blazing heat. And a friend of mine from Croydon had given me a sari, and it was so hot. It was a thick cotton sari, and I was literally melting. And I had a girl sitting next to me, 21 years old, and she had a brain tumor. And she started drawing Oms into the ground, into the sand. We were sitting on the sandy ground. And so I thought, I do the same, because this is, you know, I want to attract Swami. And I was seriously thinking that if I do the Om signs, he's going to be drawn like a magnet. And she told me her story. She was just diagnosed with this brain tumor and didn't have long to live. But she was the most the sweetest spirit. She wasn't in any way begrudging her fate. She wasn't expressing any anger towards God and saying, why me? She was completely peaceful. And all she wanted now, she didn't even think that healing would be, that Swami would heal her. She just wanted to see him. And then whatever happens, that would be it. So I was very impressed with this young woman. And so we sat together drawing Oms in the ground. And then Swami came out of his spaceship-like dormitory and made a beeline for us. So I thought, oh my God, this is working. The magnet is working. All the Oms in the ground, they're pulling him towards us. So he came and then asked our group leader, Helen, he said, where do you come from? And so on. And then said, go for interview. So I quickly got up. At that time I was pushing a wonderful lady called Linda. She was in a wheelchair, and I was pushing her into the grounds where Sai Baba's home is, and we were waiting there, and I was just in awe of the beauty of all the animals in the garden, of the flowers, and we were waiting there for Baba to come after he's collected all the letters and done his rounds. And he came and then called me, and I was supposed to push the wheelchair up the ramp to his to go inside. And I don't know, I'm fairly strong. I've got good muscles. I'm fairly strong, but the wheelchair was rolling backwards on me. I couldn't push it up. And I think that was another trick of Swami, really, because he said to me, go get husband. And literally those words, I know all this because I wrote a diary of every moment in India. So I've written it all down. And so he says, go get husband. Now, the amazing thing is that this wonderful man who then pushed his wife up the ramp is now my husband. We married 4 years after Linda passed away, and to me that is yet another miracle, because I do feel Swami's presented me my soulmate. So I'm very grateful. So inside the interview room, I placed myself. You see, this is I was so excited. I was like a child in a sweet shop. And I placed myself right next to Swami's chair, which also there's the door for the interview room, and the smaller interview room. And then Swami came in, and I want to read this to you because another miracle happened. My now husband, but he was given in Puttapati a tape recording of this interview, which is I've never even heard of. I didn't know there was anybody with a tape. And why did he choose my husband to give him that tape? And a few years ago, I'd written a book about my journey with Swami. And when I came to I transcribed my diary, but obviously I only had about the interview what I remembered and I saw through my own perspective. And he said, oh, if you're on in that chapter of writing about the interview, I have a tape. So we have an audio tape. I've got an audio tape with Swami's voice, with the entire interview. And this for me is such an amazing miracle. And I want to read a little bit from the book to share with you. Sai Baba sits down and asked, "Where is God?" Most people have a quick answer. "In the heart, Swami." "No," he replies, "the heart is only small. God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. He's everything. What is the way to God?" "Love is the way to God." He answers the question himself and smiles. "I'm drinking in the sound of his voice. Have I ever heard a sweeter, gentler voice?" The devotee asks, "We have a devil and we have a God?" Swami says, "Everything is God." Where is God? God is everywhere. Everything is God. You are also God. With you, in you, around you. Physically, you are a man. But you are not that. You are that which is Atma. Baba focuses his attention on an Italian woman. Turning to a large pile of letters he has collected from devotees earlier during darshan, hundreds of letters in fact, he picks out the very letter from a huge pile of letters. And everyone went, "Ah," and in the room, and was very impressed. Swami, without opening the letter, speaks about its content and why it was written. "You have cancer," he tells her. "Swami will help." He pushes up the right sleeve of his orange robe up to his elbow, perhaps to show that this is not trickery. And he starts circling his right hand, palm facing down. And I first see a light appear in the center of his palm, and then an object emerges. I see a plastic bag containing long red pills. Ah, even louder than before. He catches the bag with his left hand and tries to open it, but can't. And he jokes, "Swami can make a bag, but he can't open it." Laughter. He hands the bag to her husband, a gentleman in his early 60s perhaps. "Take twice a day," Swami instructs her. Then he circles his right hand again, and this time we can see the manifestation of a very large lady's wristwatch. The dial is at least 4 centimeters in diameter, with a gold surround and 3 long black cords with big golden beads as straps. It fits perfectly. The woman is beaming with happiness and gratitude. Swami tells her, "When you're back in Italy, you will forget that Swami has told you, and that I will help you. The watch will remind you every day. Westerners like looking at watches." Laughter. Then Swami turns once again to her husband. "Don't be jealous, because I give her so much attention. She needs help. She will be okay." The husband smiles and nods knowingly. There are several ministers present. Swami takes them into an even smaller private interview room, and he leaves the door wide open, perhaps for me to witness even more miracles. As I am sitting right next to the door, I'm privy to another act of love. First, he diagnoses one of the ministers, telling him that he had cancer of a certain type. I cannot understand what type. The man agrees with Swami's diagnosis. Then the hand circles again, and a glow of bright light appears in the center, in the palm of Swami's hand. And a Shiva lingam, an egg-like shape that Hindus use in their daily worship and rituals, manifests. Swami instructs the minister to pour water over the lingam during his daily prayers and drink the water several times a day to help his cancer. I can feel the love Sai Baba is showering over this sick man, the love of a most caring mother. This love is a tangible presence, seemingly boundless, unconditional, sweet, and beyond our understanding of human love. I feel very privileged to be in this prime position, from which I can see and hear everything. And I still don't know how come I understood, because I'm sure they were speaking in Hindi or I don't know what language, but I seem to be able to understand some of the conversation. Anyway, at one point, Baba looks smilingly at me and says, "Big eyes, look away." He must know perfectly well that I'm totally mesmerized and will not take my eyes off him. The fact that he calls me Big Eyes thrills me to bits, as I heard it was a gift to be called a special name. I felt very blessed to be a witness. All manifestations aside, the biggest miracle is this immense, tangible, never-ending stream of love flowing from him to one and all. A devotee asked the question, the Atma never dies and is never born. What is it that goes to the next life? Swami says, that is consciousness. There is no life, there is no death. From conscious comes conscience, then comes consciousness. Everything is coming from consciousness. And then there's a gap in the recording. And Swami continues, this is my body, but what is real? My senses? You are not the body, not your senses. Everybody is God. In you, within you, around you, that is God. Physically, mentally, there are so many differences, but inside all is God. And the best way to know God is to love, 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 love. So that was just an excerpt from that much longer interview. And I feel very blessed to witness that. My eyes, meanwhile, are only big because of makeup, but to be called Big Eyes, I still feel the sweetness of that moment. When I was back at home in Croydon, I received a tape from Eme Levi. He had filmed our groups, and I think it was his first film. It was, I think, 8 hours long. But anyway, very long film. And I sat down, I had the day off, and I sat down at home and with a cup of coffee and watched the film, and it sort of filled in the gaps because we were two groups. I could see what the other group had been doing, and they had an interview on the last day, which was lovely. And I was watching the interview, and in India, Helen, our group leader, she asked me to sing a song, and that song was Shalom, my friend, a Jewish song. And she asked me to sing it on my own bhajan style. And so when I watched this at home, that was the end of the film. I watched myself singing Shalom, my friend. And then the focus of the camera went to Swami's picture and to his big eyes. And I don't know what happened at that moment in time, but I completely broke down. I had a cathartic cry, and I don't know how long I cried, half an hour. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop myself. And I knew something very big was happening here. because it was so unusual, so powerful. And when I finally stopped crying, I felt as if this karmic burden was lifted off my shoulders, and I could breathe. I felt lighter, and I knew 108% that it was Swami's blessing for me to be free of this huge karmic burden. And I just want to say that, you know, we're looking at the trinkets and the medallions and whatever Swami does, but my God, this was the greatest gift I could have received from him, because it changed my life completely. It changed my outlook completely. It made me, it dropped this fear of being limited as a German. But that's not the end of the story. I just wonder how we're getting on with time. I didn't realize I've talked for so long. But anyway, I was longing for the company of my Sai friends, Sai family, and there was this crew retreat planned. And I thought I must go Friday to Sunday, everything planned, A to Z. The speakers, the singers, everything was planned by the lovely Sai president lady at the time. And so I joined them on a Friday night, and Saturday I attended a workshop on the collective unconscious, which I heard of, C.J. Jung. And the lecturer was very, very knowledgeable. And I was listening to what he had to say. And then he said, some people take on the karma of their country. I don't know the reason why somebody would do that, but it happens. Maybe it's in their karma to do that sort of thing. So I never heard that in my life, and something in my head exploded, went bing, and I felt like fainting. I felt hot and cold, and then he asked me, he said, are you all right? And I said, yes. I just closed my eyes, and I felt inside myself, I heard I guess my inner voice saying, you must speak about your experience, you must speak. And I've never given a public speech. I wouldn't dream about it. I'm way too way too shy, she says, sitting here talking to Zoom screen. So I keep hearing this inner voice saying, you must talk about your experience. So I go back to my room, and I did this deal with the gods. I did this deal with Swami, and I said, Swami, I might be completely deluding myself, but if my experience is real, if it's true, I need a sign. I need, you must give me a sign. If I go out of my room into the compound, and the first person I encounter is the Sai president, I will ask her if I can talk. So I thought, well, you know, nothing would come of it. And it was dark, and we're all going for supper, and I step out of our dormitory, And there she is, the first person in front of me is the Sai president. So my heart went sky high, and I didn't dare to ask her. I said, like the doubting Thomas, it took me 3 times before I had the courage to go on to her table and said, excuse me, I hear this inner voice and it wants me to speak about my experiences. And she looked at me very kindly and she said, do you have anything interesting to say? And I said, I have no idea. I've never spoken in my life. And she waited for a moment and looked at me, and then she said, okay, you have 20 minutes. And I thought, oh my God, now you've done it. You've put your foot in it. Now you've got to say something. And she said, tonight, so Saturday night came. It was the happiest, most wonderful, funniest evening. And I thought, oh, what I have to say doesn't really fit into this wonderful atmosphere of joy and laughter. And the evening went, we sang the Aarti, and I was somehow relieved, somehow sad that it wasn't my turn. And then the Sai president came running to me and she said, tomorrow, you're the last speaker tomorrow. So Sunday came and I gave a speech in front of 400 people. And I didn't realize so many Jewish people were there, but there were shaloms and tears and laughter and warmth and love and forgiveness. And then I have another very long story to tell, but I think we have to stop at this point. It went, I'm not sure.
No, sister, we have got time, so you may continue.
Sairam, thank you.
Sairam.
So I was the last speaker on that day, and I went up on stage. I had no piece of paper, no concept, no nothing. I didn't even know what would come out of me. I think there is a recording of it somewhere in the universe, but I don't know where. And my 20 minutes turned into 40 minutes. And there was this lovely Indian lady sitting in front of me in the first row. And she kept saying to me, I pray for you, don't cry, because she could see me getting emotional and fighting my emotions. And so I gave this 40-minute talk about the burden I felt being German and the burden I felt towards the Jewish community. And then at the end of the talk, I really don't know what I said. I was like in a trance and no one could stop the flow of words. I felt like the words were just flowing, and people got up, and I noticed that the amount of handkerchiefs and tears and people saying shalom, and it was completely overwhelming. So I sat down in my chair, and we sang the Aarti again. And obviously, you know, it was a big hall, about 200 women on one side, the men on the other side. And the women were allowed to go out first of the hall, of the compound. And I was sitting fairly much at the back, and one of the first women to get out of the room. And I walked with a friend of mine from Ireland, suddenly I saw this young man, and he looked at me, and I thought, he didn't look as if he was from this time. His jacket was too tight, his trousers too short, nothing fitted properly. And I said, I nudged my friend and I said, have I seen him before? And said, look, who is this young man who's looking at me? And she looked at me and completely puzzled and said, what young man? I said, well, this one standing here. And she said, you must be the only one who can see him. And I knew he was Jewish. And the strange thing was that time and space disappeared completely at that moment in time. And we just looked at each other. And I knew something extraordinary was happening here, but I didn't know what. And I had we were pushed, all these hundreds of people pushing, and so we were pushed, and I kept looking at him until we lost eye contact. But I knew in my heart he was Jewish and he wasn't from this time. So a Sai devotee from Bath then came to me and said, Louise, can we sit down under the tree? She said, you're the first German. Sorry, it makes me so emotional. Thank you, Swami. She said, I made this promise to myself never to speak to a German in my life. And she said, I don't know what compelled me, but you know, your speech. So we sat under a tree and we talked. I can't remember what was said anymore because I was completely taken to a cloud. And after we stopped talking, I just meditating and then went on a search to find this young man. Couldn't find him anywhere. And I think deep in my heart, I knew that he wasn't there physically. He was a spirit I saw. And I always tried to find the answer to who he was, why I saw him, what this experience was about. But what I do know for sure is that there is a message for all of us in there. And Swami, this belief in reincarnation, in incarnation, that we all have been here before. We have had other lives. And I called Peggy Mason in my despair to find out what happened at this moment. And she said, well, maybe Louise, you were looking at yourself in another life. Maybe you released the pain of this lifetime with your speech. I don't know, and I don't wish to step on anyone's feet, but this was the biggest experience in my life. And there are lots more stories about Swami I could tell you, and miracles and events. But I feel to say thank you for this opportunity to talk and to be so close to Swami. Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, sister, it was such a wonderful, enchanting, inspirational talk, sharing your lovely experiences with us. I'm sure many of us relate to some of the experiences when we were in Prasanthi with Swami. So my humble gratitude to Sister Louise. Sister Louise, we will most certainly love to have you again and listen to your wonderful stories, especially about your German-Jewish connection and Swami saying to us, you are God. And I'm sure thousands of devotees who are watching now will take that message on board. Swami says, you are God as well. So remember, brothers and sisters, we are God as well. I take this opportunity in thanking Sister Louise. Wonderful gratitude. I have got no words to express my feelings today. I thank the media team for putting this wonderful session together. And not last but least, my gratitude to my humble Bhagawan Shri Sathya Sai Baba. And respected elders, brothers and sisters, keep on watching this Sai Karuna Talk. It's very enlightening. But till then, till next week, keep safe and look after yourself. And why fear when Swami is here? Jai Saram.